Ready to hit the pause button on your parenting fails? Ready to feel better about your parenting? Welcome to Parenting Pause, the podcast, where all of you is welcome and where you can listen in on how other parents became the parents they always dreamed of being. I'm Leslie Potter, the founder of the Pure Joy Parenting Way. I'm a mother, a parenting coach, and a fellow traveler on this journey to wake up in our parenting. And I believe together we can make this a better world for ourselves and our kiddos. In this episode, I welcome Robyn, mom to her 8-year-old son, who she fostered at 19 months and adopted at age 4. Hers has been a journey through the portal of trauma, and she shares how opening to supporting her son's healing has been the doorway to healing her own early trauma. Hello, love. Happy you are joining me today to share.
Great to be here. Thanks for asking.
And of course, this is a story after my own heart, being the single mom who adopted my daughter. I'd love to ask you today, what was your motivation in adopting a child as a single mom?
Well, I think it just came down to wanting to be a mom since I was a teen. And through the twists and turns of life, it turned out that being a single mom was the gateway. Once I discovered that my core motivation was to be a mom and not necessarily to have a relationship along with that, things started opening up towards adoption.
So what was your fantasy about how it would be? I know I had a big one, so I'm curious.
Oh, that it would be all sunshine and rainbows and unicorns, of course, that we would go frolicking through the fields hand in hand and, everything would be perfect.
Yeah.
Didn't turn out that way.
No. Well, I think we always, I know for myself, especially waiting so long and doing it on my own, that I had thought I was really prepared and I thought I had read some stuff, which I'm sure you probably did, going through the
Yeah.
fostering system. And,
Mm-hmm.
I thought, oh, well, I can handle this and love is going to really make a difference. And it was pretty shocking when I realized that it was a lot deeper issues than I had actually prepared myself for.
I think for me, I just had always been in this place where I had thought that I could figure things out. My experience in life up until this point was that everything was solvable. I could use my intellect to figure things out, and I had really shied away from dealing with my own early trauma, which was that I was a military kid. I had grown up in the military and had moved every couple of years and had never really dealt with the early trauma that comes with that. And that got triggered big time, along with my own early experiences with my own parents, when I walked into a relationship with a young child that had his own issues with permanency. Learning to navigate my own feelings that were triggered by his feelings was huge. It's what led me to working with you.
How did this trauma manifest in his behavior? What were the signs? What did you begin to notice?
My son was a 19-month-old, first of all, so I was going into the terrible twos. And on top of that, you had a child who had been, who had lost everything that he was familiar with, and he was raging against it. When you look at like fight or flight, he was fighting every step of the way. And so tantrums, physical violence and aggression towards me, really difficult times with transitions, especially because in the fostering journey that we were on, he was having visits with his birth parents. And so he was very confused, angry about it, and trying his level best to navigate the situation. And it wasn't like this all of the time, but, he was banging his head on the floor at home and being self-aggressive, like scratching, biting himself. Really scary behaviors for somebody to witness. And also to have it directed towards me at times was frightening. It was an unsettling environment. I didn't feel like I could relax. He certainly couldn't.
Right. I mean, I just so identify with this because I have a child that
Yeah.
was also adopted with some trauma.
Mhm.
And could you share with us how you reacted to that then?
There's a phrase from Dan Siegel, the author, where he talks about the window of tolerance. And, my window of tolerance started getting narrower and narrower and eventually slammed shut. I would say it was probably 6 months into the fostering journey where I found myself really reacting quickly in negative ways to try and control his behaviors. So I was using the parental map that I had, yelling. It was not a calm environment at all for anyone. And I felt like a horrible person. I was just scared that I was going to lose him ultimately, too. So there, with the trauma of the fostering journey as well, it was a very frightening time.
Gosh, I hear you. And what comes up for me as I hear your story, as you said, so much of the core vulnerability in this story is one of feelings of loss, right?
Yeah,
And it's so crazy, in that trying not to lose, right? Not to
yeah,
feel those feelings, we end up in behaviors that actually could create the actual loss that we're terrified of.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, fear and terror on a level that I had not experienced in a very long time. And as I started to do this work, I realized that it was tied to my own experience as a young child of leaving everything that I had known. But I didn't know that at the time. And it was a very rocky period of time.
Well, it always takes me back to how we say we want to change, and yet we have such contradictory feelings about actually changing. Because in your story, this required that you could find a safe place to begin to process and be with those deep feelings of loss.
I think for me, I've struggled with depression on and off since my teen years, undiagnosed for a long time. And my own particular journey, I had tried fertility treatments on my own, which had required getting off of antidepressants. I didn't want to be on medication, really struggled mightily against the idea that I needed it. There were a couple of critical points in my relationship with my son where I was trying to navigate my own depression, my own trauma, and it just triggered his. So we were in this triggering circle, which you have called the trauma vortex, where we would just keep tripping each other's triggers. And that was the thing I didn't know how to get out of. I had never been in that situation before where it was so chronic, right? It was happening a lot. It was happening often, and nothing, no experience, no therapy, no medication, whatever. All of the resources I had used up until that point didn't work. Nothing was working. And I think for me, the turning point was we hit a point where I actually took my son to the emergency room, the pediatric emergency room, during a particularly bad breakdown and meltdown where I just was at a loss. And they did a emergency psych eval on him and basically said that he was also expressing suicidality, suicide ideation at the age of 4 or 5 years old. And that scared the crap out of me. Everything fell away. I had to completely let go and just let the chips fall where they may. Took him to the emergency room. They said he is suffering from PTSD and you need more thorough psych eval. And, it just kicked me into a gear of you need help. So I started reaching out to all of the different connections that I had and found you through a circuitous route, a practitioner of a practitioner who suggested that maybe a parenting coach would help. And also I had gotten that advice from the kindergarten teachers at school, which was a little hard to accept. So that's how I found you.
Well, I'm so
And
glad you did because
yeah,
you found the right person
yeah, I did.
for
It
your
was,
situation.
I
I like
did.
to tell folks, there's all kinds of different parenting coaching, and but when you got to me, I think it was right around that weekend. I think I knew
Mhm.
about that weekend happening.
Mhm.
And
Yep.
since I had been through some similar things myself and understood the nature of trauma, I think it was much easier for me to come in and sit with you and be with you as you began this journey.
It was a critical tipping point, right? I realized that I needed to kind of get my own oxygen mask on and take care of myself, and that included getting back on antidepressants. And I also needed to find a different way to manage through these extremely hard emotions that rose up for me every time we were in a struggle. I saw him as an enemy. I'm sure I know he saw me as an enemy at times. It wasn't always like this, but when we got into conflict around whatever, bedtimes,
Mhm.
taking a bath, going to school, any kind of transitions, if I had to travel for work, there are just things that you think are going to go normally, I guess. And it got to a point where every little thing was a struggle. One of the key things for working with you was I learned how to do the safe seat, and that was that was what I needed. That was what was different. A number of things, but that was a key tool for me that I had never had access to before, that nobody had ever shown me how to sit myself down and feel these really difficult, challenging emotions like anger and terror and sadness and fear. And, instead of trying to run away from them, just letting them flow over you for 90 seconds and just sit your butt down and feel those feelings, and then kind of come back and try again with your kiddo. That was life changing for me, because what I'd been doing before that was running away from those feelings, and they just would build and build and build, and then you're in the vortex.
Yeah, and I like to tell parents then our children become the location of those feelings. And when
Yeah.
we can't avoid them any longer, we try to control them, time them out, fix them, beat them
Yep.
down, do
Yep.
anything we can. And yet, actually, is an act of self aggression.
For me, I was blaming him. He's the one with the trauma. He's the one that's got the issues. I am this perfect little angel pie that came in and is helping scoop him out of a situation that was not good. So, there's nothing wrong with me.
He just won't let me love him, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember that so deeply because when
Hmm.
you do adopt again, I remember later in my journey, though, someone said, "Well, what a noble act of humanity." And I was able to say
Yeah.
yes on her part.
Yeah. For dealing with me.
Right?
Yeah.
She came back to help me know myself because
Right.
for me, I had never gotten married because I was not willing to feel my feelings of rejection and abandonment. So,
Hmm.
I had organized my life so well not to feel those feelings. And it took me closing that back door where I could not escape or chose not to escape by adopting my daughter to actually be able to go into some of those really intense waters. And I hear the same is true for you.
Yes, yes, absolutely. I think for me, I thought it would be easier with a child, because what intense feelings is a child going to know, right? Which shows how ignorant I was of child development and trauma.
And
Not that they
unfortunately, what we don't prepare for is that we actually go back to being that little kid.
Yes.
So then there's no adult in the house, right, to
No,
help us
there
through.
wasn't.
So I just want to pause just for a second because we're talking about the safe seat. And I know someone that might be new to listening to the podcast might want to know, well, what is the secret sauce? And if you go on over to my webpage at purejoyparenting.com and click on Robyn's interview, you will be able to download a copy of the safe seat. And the safe seat is the foundational practice that we use in the Pure Joy process to find a safe base for us to be able to go. And it's kind of like having my safe seat is like having the adult in the house. The safe seat becomes the adult if I can use my personal discipline to get myself there. So I would love for you to talk about that, like how hard that is to pause when we're in the heat of that dynamic red zone in our brains when everything is going off and going danger, danger, danger. What
Mhm.
it took for you to be able to find that moment where you could, pull yourself away and get yourself to your safe seat. Because I hear so many people say, well, how do I do that? It's so reactionary and it's so fast and hot.
It's practice, 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 practice. You do what you can in the moment and you start to notice, just like, wow, I should probably just sit down right now and I can count to 90 and just see what happens. And over time, as I started to do that and practice it, I was able to do it earlier in the process. You can start to see and notice in yourself when your breath is increasing, your heart rate is going up, you're flushing. What I was able to do was over time with practice was sit down earlier through that process. Like, oh, I'm starting to breathe deeply. I'm starting to really feel this red, angry flush come up. I need to sit down. And I would tell my son that. I would say, I am really feeling angry and I need to sit down so I don't do something I'm going to regret. It wasn't an immediate quick fix. It wasn't something that you could do in 2 weeks or everything was going to be fixed. It's a practice, and it's a practice that I do every day now too. But after 2 years, more than 2 years of doing this work, I have found that I am able to shortcut this process of, I know when I'm starting to get upset and I can start and look at like, okay, what do I need, right? Am I hungry? Am I tired? Do I need some caffeine? Do I need some appreciation, which is not, something that he is supposed to give to me? What do I need in this moment right now? It affords me that ability to pause, but it's very much a practice and it's very much an ongoing thing. And the more you do it, the earlier in the process you can kind of sit down and take care of your own needs.
And I know the group has been really supportive. I like
Yes.
to tell parents that when you can find other people doing this type of work, often you can bring that energy to a place
hmm
where you can be seen, heard, and validated when you're not able to do it for yourself.
Yeah. That's been my experience with the group. Is it was critical because we're all very, very different from all over the world and different situations. I think in our group I was the only single parent and I was the only one with a child that was adopted, but that didn't matter. We were all experiencing our own reactions and trying to get ahead of our own reactions.
Yeah. So
Um,
I
yeah.
would love if you could share maybe an example for mamas and papas listening of how it might look right now, let's say at bedtime or during a transition. How you actually do it. Because I know everybody's sitting there going, well, it all sounds great, conceptual. But what does that actually look like in Robyn's life today?
What I have found with my particular kiddo is that he had experienced neglect in his early months of life. And so what I found through trial and error was that the number one trigger for him is hunger. If he is hungry, all else goes out the window. He literally cannot behave. Yesterday, as a matter of fact, I was working at home. We'd had a really quiet mellow day. We had played Pokemon Go, done a lot of things that were really great. And he had come in the afternoon to the house and said, "This is like the best day ever." So this is maybe at 4 o'clock, and he hasn't had an afternoon snack. And so I reminded him a couple times, there's cheese, there's all kinds of stuff in the fridge. Grab a bar, grab something, because it's going to be a little while before dinner, which is usually around 6 or 6:30. But he didn't. He didn't avail himself of a snack. And for me, that used to be a lot more frustrating. Like, first of all, I had to figure out what the number one trigger was. And then second, it's like the food is right there. Go get some, It's easy enough to do that. And what I've found is that when I'm working and distracted, he really needs to make sure that I'm connected to him, that I'm paying attention to him. And so what I ended up doing yesterday, because he snapped at me over something at probably around 5:30, and he just started yelling at me over some little thing. And I was like, whoa, okay, I think maybe you do need a snack. And he's like, "I am not hungry," yelling at me. And I'm like, "Whatever, kid, I know you are." So I brought over a sack of cheese snacks to him, and I said, "Here, the regular dinner is going to be ready. If you need something else, I can bring you something else too." But just that extension into bringing it to him, I think, instead of expecting him to go and take care of his own needs, he just needs to be cared for periodically, right? Because he wasn't when he was young, super young. And me recognizing that and seeing that, it just heads it off. So that's like one small example. If I had stuck to my own guns, so to speak, in terms of go get your own snack, go get the cheese out of there, and then we'd gotten into like this battle, this control battle, he would have just completely melted down at some level, because fundamentally what he needed was to feel seen, heard, connected, cared for. And when I'm able to do that, even by something as small as bringing him a snack when he can't get it for himself, that kind of short circuits it.
It's such a beautiful story, because we can go into such a story at 8, he should be able to get a snack. Instead of, I just love how you just slowed everything down, because you were starting to head. I try to tell people it's like the hot potato. When our children start to feel
Yes.
anxious, they start to pass us the anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
And we immediately move into our old strategies. And your old strategy might have been to try to control him, trying to get him to do it, trying all of
Yeah.
these things. And I just love how through your practice over and over, you stayed in your adult and realized this child needs my support right now. And he's probably
Right.
not 8 in that moment.
Mm-mm.
If we go to, well, he's
No.
8 years old and he can get his own, most likely he's not 8. He's
No.
probably, as he starts to get triggered, he's moving back into a much younger age where he actually could not get his snack. Very powerful example. I really appreciate. And
Mm-hmm.
what it looks like is what Robyn's talking about is slowing ourselves down, and most of all, staying in our heart. That's what I hear you're saying.
Yeah. And I think to take care of your own little one,
Yeah.
you cannot care for someone else when your own little kid inside is flipping out. I've learned through this work too to nourish her, my own little 2-year-old, 4-year-old, 6-year-old Robyn, who needs her own needs met. If I'm hungry and I feel like I need to get my work done before I can eat or whatever, that's not helping anything. I need to just sit and say, what do I need in this moment right now? Then you're able to come back to more of a place of calm and reset with your own kiddo. And it's just, this process works. This is the only thing that I have found in years of searching. I started it initially for working with my kiddo, but it has helped me grow my own self up in so many ways. So it's been a added bonus that extends throughout my life, my work life, my relationships with my friends and my family. It's not just parenting your kiddo, it's parenting yourself.
How beautifully said.
She did not pay me to say this, and she did not feed me the words. I really feel this way.
Well, I just so wanted you to be on because, again, it's deeply in my heart around kids with trauma. I think we all have our own version of trauma, but especially kids like yours and mine that are so misunderstood. And what I like folks to know is that those children are feeling so threatened, especially by our love. And it just, we almost can't make sense of it in our mind. It's like, all I'm trying to do is love you.
Yeah.
And to understand that that type of, for at least for my daughter, that type of love and with that intensity was so overwhelming for her. It was so intense. And when I really was able to come back in and own my own need for love and loving myself in a very intense way, and when I began to give it to myself, miracles began with my daughter.
I asked him this morning before I sat down for this interview with you. I told him what I was doing. And I said, what do you think? How have I changed since starting to do this kind of coaching work? And he said, you're a much better mom. And I'm like, oh, good. But he was 100% sincere. Like, he said, I'm a better mom and in every way. And coming in as the adoptive mom and recognizing the loss that we all have experienced. He's lost his birth mother. His birth mother has lost him. I have not had the experience of birthing a child. I'm kind of not the top choice. If everything was perfect and rainbows and unicorns, he would still be with his birth family. But I think in this instance, to be told that by your child, it feels amazing. It feels like we're on the right path.
Thank you to Robyn for sharing her journey through the doorway of trauma and how she found her way back to her vulnerable heart. Parenting Paused is produced by Kim Paletti at Sound Mind Productions. Music by Jan Perchik. You can find the show notes at www.purejoyparenting.com, where you'll get access to the foundational practice of Pure Joy, the safe seat, and find links to relevant topics, as well as a transcription of the show. And if this work inspires you and you would like to practice, come join us in my free Pure Joy Parenting Practice group. You'll find the link in the show notes. Thank you for being here today and listening to the Parenting Pause podcast, your partner and support in finding the joy in yourself and with your children. And remember, if you're about to scream, pause.